provided that you're all here. And so, without further ado, let me ask you to join in giving a warm welcome to Chancellor DuBois. Glenn?
If you don't mind, I'll just stand up here. I won't get on the stage. Can you hear me okay? I heard violin music just before I got up here. Is that so? Well, thanks. As Alvin said, I'm going to be here for about an hour. I do have some things to say, and I want to kind of, at some point, stop and, if appropriate, take some questions or comments. It's been a while since I've stood in front of you all, but that does not mean that I haven't been thinking about you. In fact, I have been thinking about you. I'm thinking about how important you are to our entire community college system. We're closing out a great year called Deadline of 09. You've been a big part of that in making us, or helping us achieve some of those goals. And we're about to move into another strategic era, lack of a better name, but we'll call it for now the daughter of Deadline 09. And it's going to have some very terribly important goals. And if there's, I guess, one message I want to convey to all of you today, is we're going to need you. Virginia's going to need you, this country's going to need you to help achieve some of these goals. Here's what I see coming for Virginia in the future. First, the 12th grade is no longer the finish line if we're going to have an independent economy. So we have to do everything we possibly can to get folks into college and achieve some post-secondary credential. Not necessarily a law degree, but some credential that's worth something in the marketplace. And Thomas Nelson's going to play the key role in this region in doing that. Second, if you were born between the years 1946 and 1964, raise your hand. Congratulations. You represent, those that raise your hand, you represent the best educated generation in America's history. And unless we change the future, this generation, best educated, in a time when now we agree that 12th grade is no longer the finish, unless we change the future, this generation will be replaced with a generation less educated. And the game now and tomorrow is not going to be competing with North Carolina or South Carolina or Maryland. It's now Singapore, Ireland, Finland. So I see big days ahead for our community colleges, not just in the Commonwealth, but in the nation. We're going to have to really step up so we can remain economically competitive in a worldwide context. Now, I have been troubled by some of the things that I know that have occurred here. Some of the behaviors that I think have gotten us off of what's really important, or some of the behaviors that have perhaps distracted us from seeing what's really important. Even though I haven't been here, I have not been unaware. And I have done some things behind the scenes trying to help. From asking a long-term community college leader to come in here and kind of assess for me what's going on. From meeting with, it's really inaccurate to say that I have not been here. I have been here. There was the visit with your board, the college board, and to meet with some of your leaders, trying to assess what has happened. Because what I was reading, and it's really not, it wasn't the story. It's not the best of the story that happens here. I personally reached out and tried to secure the services of a highly regarded professional here in Virginia. I'm talking about Alvin Scheckstein. I asked him to give up his consultancy. Asked him to give up spending some time with his wife. Found out she said, "Dad, that would be okay." No, I'm not doing that. To make a long commute. To work with, I think, a leadership team, a very good one that's here, and they need some help. And some of those leaders are new. And to try to get everybody back together and to focus on what's really, really important. And that's our students, the companies that we serve, our communities. And I think you're I think you're on your way to doing that. I still think we need do some more work in coming together and really coming to agreement on what's very, very important. And I do talk about you all the time. I have a home in Williamsburg. Just this morning, I was out doing my bicycle ride, about an hour and a half early. I look at that building, what a jewel it's going to be. In a place where they thought they only needed one place, William and Mary. Incidentally, my daughter, Maris, she goes to that new high school right next to where we're going to open up this beautiful campus. I took it upon myself to stop in the high school and introduce myself to the career coach at the high school. Career coaching is going to be the wave of the future, helping more young people go to college. I was the first in my generation to go. That was by accident. It was by accident. My mother nagged me to death, and the only thing I did was just put an application in to get her off my back. And you've heard that story. I'm not going to go through it again, but thank God I did go. And I didn't think I was fit, but it changed my life slowly. I'll never forget my first moment there. I knew exactly what to do, to stand on a long line to register. I could do that. But slowly, the lines started moving, and I got up to the front of the table. And I was about to have my first official interaction as a college student. And it was a woman, and she looked at me and said, or asked, whatever, "Have you matriculated?" And I wasn't quite sure. I asked her if that was bad. I didn't even know what the word meant. She told me, "Have you chosen a program?" I said, "Yes, I chose police science because it has the least amount of mathematical requirements." But the career coach, if I were in high school and this teacher said, "Why don't you go down to Thomas Nelson? There are really great people down there," I wouldn't have done it. Let's go across the street and meet Alvin Scheckstein. He works at Thomas Nelson, and before you know it, Alvin's talking to me, and you think I really can do it? And then talking to my parents, who, when it does come up, they said, "Well, we can't afford it." We find out we can because of assistance. So the career coach is the wave of the future, but that's not why I stopped in at Ward Hill High School to see the career coach. I wanted to ask her if she could check up on my daughter's boyfriends. And she said no. So I appealed to the high school principal, and she said no. So my daughter's privacy is protected. When my career is over, whether it's 10 years or 12 years from now, And it's been 29 for me so far. It has been absolutely extraordinary. When I started in 1980, we were kind of seen as high schools with ashtrays, as something that real college kids didn't go to. Here we are today, full seat at the higher education table. In fact, I'm not even sure we should even talk about ourselves within the higher education context because we are very different. We got our start because we were willing to do what no other organization would do. And that has become our mission, to respond to the changing unmet needs of this community. That's our job. It's not just pure liberal arts. It's not just pure workforce development. It's to step up and to respond to the unmet needs, educational needs in this community. And that's what makes this work so fun, because that's where you find these new markets. When I was that community college student, we didn't have something called part-time students with us. Now they're predominantly part-time. I was in that police science program, one female. Now I know criminal justice programs, more than half are women. So it's been a wonderful career. But if it's another 15 years, or 12, and when I step down, we still will not have reached our plateau and how this country will lead us. That's why I think it's important to, if anything, for you to come here and say, this college is key to Virginia's future. You're so big. You have stakeholders here that are so important. One is the only place in the world that deals with nuclear aircraft carriers. And whatever internal difficulties have happened here, whatever internal disagreements, that I think were conveyed in a very disagreeable manner. I think we should disagree from time to time. That's what the academy is about. But we should not do it in a disagreeable, disrespectful fashion. That's out of bounds. That's out of bounds. So when we can get kind of back centered, and I think you're on your way, there's a world out there. There's a community, a region out there that really needs you. You have students here that really need you. And this next plan, the state line 2005, we're not going to get there without you. You're just too important. Just too important. So I kind of feel like I'm sermonizing a little bit. I'm not good at it. But if I can just kind of sum up and then stop and then take some questions. I wanted to convey a couple things to you. One, I haven't been missing in action, even though you haven't seen me. I have invested, I've had the organization invest a lot of resources. I have been concerned. I'm also well aware of some of the great things that happen here. Is Marty here? I just spent the $5,000. The winner, the only winner of the Chancellor's Pension Elimination. I've read some great headlines of the work that you're doing with Canon, for example. The governor talks about you all the time. The Newport News mayor won't shut up about you. He's constantly talking about you. And I like to brag about you. I also wanted to convey to you that I have a lot of support, a lot of respect for the leadership team. And that I kind of feel personally responsible for recruiting Alvin County on an interim basis. I'm also not in a position, because of timing, I hope you will respect this, to make any announcement regarding the future of that presidency. I still have, it's not, some of you may think, well, it's just Glenn's decision. Well, that's not true. I'm not the owner. There are others. governing board. So all 15 members appointed by the governor, and then there's a local advisory board that our state board says plays an important role of what happens here. So I'm in the process of having that conversation about the presidency with those important stakeholders, so I can't make an announcement right now. But I will soon. We'll see. And I want to tell you, I believe in it. I believe it. And the work tomorrow is going to be even more challenging than the work today. That may turn some of you on. That may turn some of you off. But this country is going to need us in ways that it never needed us before, if we want to remain economically viable. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help get us there. And I hope you do too. I hope you do too. Incidentally, even though I haven't been here, maybe this is a Virginia way, and maybe I shouldn't even say this, but folks can always send me email. I'm now on Facebook. And I've recently become a Twitter. Right. I'm very proud of that. When I started work in 1980 as a 26-year-old faculty member, all I needed back in those days was to make sure I had a piece of chalk in my pocket. I used to keep it in my pocket because I was afraid I couldn't find it in the classroom. And we didn't have whiteboards, we had this slate. And that's all I needed, that, the book in my mouth, and I could probably do okay. And now, you would, and I did that for 10 years, now you probably wouldn't hire me. Because I can't make all of the technology work. But I do email, Twitter, and I have Facebook. So if you really do want to reach out, you can. So thank you. I'm going to stop here, and I want to just take some questions or any comments that I need. How about if I work from the front of the room back, left to right? Okay, please. There's a mic there.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say that throughout the difficulties, it has never been a question that the professorship here has always been doing the work that is necessary to be done.
Sure.
And I just wanted to say that, and I thank you everybody for working so hard to make sure that our schools are still important for our neighborhood and our state.
Thank you for that. I just saw some of the best of Thomas Nelson this past week at a Phi Theta Kappa luncheon. With some recognition awards to students. I think there's a question over here. There's a couple.
In terms of restoring what we should be focusing on and where we should be going, what are the most urgent steps that you would recommend us to take?
Well, I mean, thank you for the question, and I might be, is it okay, Alvin, do you want me to answer, or can I flip? I'd be happy to. This is not my idea, but I think it's certainly something that I would support, and also commend to you. Under Alvin's leadership, working with some others, beginning this fall, when you all kind of come back, is to come together and everybody come together and really articulate what kind of civic environment do you really want to have here, so you can, from time to time, have disagreements and still convey those views to others without alienating folks. I mean, what's interesting about Thomas Nelson, unlike, let's say, a rural community college, is you're very, very diverse. You're very, very diverse. And diversity breeds conflict. The more diverse you are, the more potential there is for conflict. However, the world is diverse. And if we cannot individually interact in that world and teach our students how to interact in that world, we're not going to be in the game. Because that's the world now. That is the world. So I support Al in his desire to kind of convene a commission. I'm pulling the names out of my pocket here, but to convene some kind of a venue where everybody comes together. And in some meaningful way, having a conversation is, what do we expect of each other while we work to change the lives of our students and our community? It's not rocket science. It's just convening of people that have differences of opinion from time to time. And establishing perhaps some basic rudimentary rules. Engagement. So I think that could be positive. Yes, sir.
I guess you've heard about the unfortunate event at Hampton University this weekend.
Yes.
With the shootings. Over the last few years, we've had faculty and staff here who have semi-regularly been verbally abused by students.
Right.
We've had faculty threatened by students, and we've even had a couple of incidents where there have been physical attacks by visitors to the campus and also by students. So my concern, and a lot of the faculty and staff that I've spoken to, their concern is our college community and safety here. So I guess my question for you is, just I guess general advice from you on how to respond in light of this
Right.
just happening, I believe it was yesterday at Hampton, and also if there is a BCCS policy addressing this issue.
Back on my last answer, this kind of commission also includes students. We know it should be shut down anyway. No, that should just be unacceptable. Now, everybody should feel safe. And you live in a kind of open, large, urban-ish kind of community where people come in and out of this college, of your classroom, of your office. We're not an airport where people are checked out. You can't even tell a joke without somebody threatening you that you may be arrested. We're more like an academic park where everybody can have admission, at least to come here at no charge. So what have we done to be prepared for any kind of emergency? And now most emergencies in my career, not the Hampton, it gets weather. For those of you who remember Isabel, you remember what I'm talking about. It's some kind of a natural disaster, but we also have to be prepared for that intruder, that dangerous person that could be armed. After Virginia Tech's massacre, which really hit home, because my son is a student there. And he takes classes in that building. And I couldn't tell for 4 hours if he was alive. I knew he took classes in that building. I just didn't know if it was on Monday morning or Tuesday. He said, it was fascinating. I found out all of his friends knew in 10 minutes that he was fine by Facebook or MySpace. I never knew the difference between MySpace and Facebook until somebody said, well, Glenn, at your age, it's okay to be on Facebook. If you were on MySpace, that would be really weird. I said, okay. Well, when I saw what happened, I quickly kind of put together a very high-level task force. It was called the Chancellor's Task Force on Emergency Preparedness. You should read it. There are a series of recommendations. And that from time to time, we monitor the implementation of those recommendations at each college. Some of them are resource implications, but for the most part, colleges have done a very good job at paying attention to these recommendations, and I think this whole issue, or this topic of emergency preparedness, has been greatly elevated, unfortunately, by the Virginia Tech incident, and it's on all of our minds. And I think just this week, Catherine tells me that now in almost every classroom, you have, it doesn't look like a phone, it looks like a small screen, it's a Cisco phone, but you have instant access in your classroom to security here, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Catherine, to your local police departments. And this topic just came up in a meeting that I had just before coming in here, where I made a recommendation to the leadership team that in addition to some tabletop exercises, that you actually engage in some mock, pretend it's real emergency situation, because the key that we're finding out in places where we have had emergencies, the key really will come down to the kinds of relationships you have with your local first responders and law enforcement agencies. And those relationships need to be in place before the emergency happens. Also, you have a support staff here. And part of their job is to help students who may just be dealing with a crisis, who may be acting inappropriately, who may be scared, and you got to tell them. You have to tell them, this student, I'm worried about this student. Because they only know what they know, and if you don't tell them, I'm worried about this student, I'm not going to do anything. So, if you're in that classroom and this student is acting out, and you can't just interpersonally resolve it at the moment, pick up the phone if you have to. Make the call. But we want you to be safe, out of harm's way, and at ease, so you can work in an academic environment. Okay? We have one college, incidentally, it's a small one. When they have a student that's in trouble, they actually pay for the counseling. 3 visits. 3 visits. It's part of their policy. Now, I have a hunch that the volume is very low, but they do it. It's deadly, by the way. I think they were having some problems of getting access to some help. So they formed a relationship with a counseling firm, and they pay. They pay. Question in the back.
As we look towards opening a new campus in this summer and fall, and based on your knowledge and working relationship with the legislature, what are the realities the college faces as far as the additional portions of the master plan for that campus? When might the college look towards for additional buildings, additional square footage, additional programs at that facility?
This is not a duck, but the answer is I don't know. But as the new campus, as we start to see increased demand of the new campus, I think it's going to make a strong case to go into the next phase of the master development project. You have some very influential legislators in both the House and the Senate who have not only believe in this college, but they have been on that campus without and others. At the right time, they'll be helped. I'm finding it generally in my career a little bit easier to get capital support to build buildings, and increasingly harder to get dollars to operate those buildings. Because the buildings are usually done through some kind of a bonding venue, and the operating dollars are real dollars on an annual basis going in. This is the first time, and I'm just being candid with you, this past year was the first year where the legislature stopped funding new space coming online. We used to get an additional appropriation when we brought on space to help that facility get off the ground at that campus for 3 years. And each year we would take a third back and put it in the big bucket for all the 23 colleges. That has stopped. We're bringing on 1 million square feet in the next 2 years. It's coming on. I mean, you're part of it. And we did not get an appropriation to do it. So what do we do? Well, this is nice. This is where this nice one was system. We're going to kind of take it off the top. So you can equip your historic triangle, you can staff it, you can deal with students in a meaningful way from day one. And then each year we're going to take a third of it and put it back in the general bucket. Next, following another third, into 3 years, that subsidy will be over. That's the way it worked, except we got the legislature this time. All 23 are pitching in to make it happen. But on the expansion, I think the need or the demand will drive that conversation. You're in a great spot. Williamsburg, when as you know, I bought a home in Williamsburg. The county administrator, who's about to retire, I believe, described a lifelong resident who told me Williamsburg once was the land of the lazies and the crazies. Retired, and those that were in the hospital. First mental institution ever erected in the country. That is not the Williamsburg of today or the James City County of today. Lots of families, lots of young folks that are going to need to go to college. Increasingly, more and more middle-class families in there, and they're going to need our price to have access to that college. So I see big days ahead for Williamsburg. You think if I ever retired, they'd hire me as a police science instructor? Yes?
Hi, I just wanted to, the faculty at Thomas Nelson has received a lot of bad press of late. And I was wondering if you were aware that we are the second lowest paid faculty in the state of Virginia, community college faculty. And also that in the last 2 sessions, our students have reported 95 to 98% satisfaction with the faculty. So
I guess pay doesn't have anything to do with it. That was a poor attempt at a joke. You said that bad press. I haven't seen any bad press recently. Oh, I see. In the college. Well, again, I think if we can just, I think from time to time people need to disagree, but they can't do it disagreeably. You have to figure out how are we going to appropriately convey our disagreements, our concerns. So that conveyance, or that inappropriate conveyance, doesn't become the story. Because that's what I was reading. And that's not at the heart of what's right here. The pay, I can't do anything about that this year. This year is the year where FTE means full-time employment. You know, we have colleges and communities now that have hit 17% unemployment. Heading probably to 20. Martinsville, Denver. I think here, we probably all know people that have lost their job. If you're college educated, the rate is half. It's half. And here you're probably in a more, I wouldn't say recession-proof because no one's recession-proof now, but you're fortunate to be in a market that's going to rebound quickly. You have a pretty diverse economy. I do believe, and this is I could be off here, but I do believe, I did authorize the administration here in previous years to go beyond the average salary increases across the board. And when the time is right, the time is now not right for salary increases and bonuses. God, you almost don't want to even say the bonus, really. It's been abused in such high venues. But when the time is right, I would support those kinds of requests, again, to bring salaries up. I just can't do it now. I just can't do it. There will be no salary increases, at least for this coming year. And I just, even if I had a magic wand, I couldn't do anything about it. But thank you. Dawn, right?
Sir, you stated that there will be a group in October to come together, I guess, and agree or disagree on ways to work civilly.
Yes.
My question is, do you feel that we'll be able to successfully do that when you have a group of folks that literally try to find negative information on leadership, in particular our interim president as well, and publish it? It might be underground, but it is published.
Mm-hmm. I think you have to give it your best. You got to come together and make it work. And if I, as an individual, took such outrage just to that challenge of helping make an environment more productive and civil, if that really outraged me, I would go find another success. I would. If that really was an outrageous proposition. Because if it was, then just getting up, coming to work would really bother you. It was. And you shouldn't have to work like that. You should go find an environment that but I do think that diversity breeds conflict. It generates conflict. And more than ever, we have to always kind of come together and try to figure out how we can learn from that. I like to think that in a diverse environment, we uncover everyone's useful differences. I kind of emphasize the word useful. Not troubling, not alienating, useful. Useful. I think you ought to do everything you can to make it work and give it a try. If you want me to demonstrate on how serious I am, I'll come down and help you kick it off. I'll be happy to. I found out that, I won't go there. Yes?
'Tis a season for tuition increases. We've seen in the paper recently from Christopher Newport, William and Mary, like that.
Yeah.
What are we looking at community college system-wide? And also, could you talk about the thing I read about 20% of any increases going to other community colleges that would affect our students' tuition actually going to some other college?
Good question. We will next month propose a tuition increase to the state board that is very consistent with their policy that they implemented 5 years ago, that they would have annual modest tuition increases for the next 6 years, so we avoid those sticker shots, when you don't do anything and then all of a sudden you get hit with a problem and you have to raise it, 42%, which we have done. We wanted to avoid that and have something more like 5 to 7. And I'm expecting that the board will see that kind of a proposal again. Now, what's interesting is percentages do not describe us well. They don't work for us a lot, the way they're used. Or let me give you an example. Governor says, a governor, not necessarily this one, it's going to be a 5% cut across the board. Well, that does not have a similar across-the-board effect, because we're so much more reliant on general fund than, let's say, the University of Virginia, that relies on only about 12% of that general fund. So part of my job was to try to convey to these decision makers, across the board does not work for us. And I think we were a little bit successful, because the governor introduced a -5 for Thomas Nelson and a -10 for the others. Not Tidewater Community College, but, you know. The others. Now, what's interesting is when, this is what concerns me, when you saw Christopher Newport, right, 5% increase. Does anybody know what the dollar value was? I think it was like 500. You saw 5% at Tech. I'm going to put that in the bill. I know what the dollar is. It's over 600. You want to take a guess? I'm not trying to minimize a tuition increase, but a 6.5% increase for us, under $200. In the year 2001, this is less than on price, and I'll get to your 20% thing. In the year 2001, our mandatory tuition and fees, compared to the average of the public universities and colleges, don't you find it interesting that we don't have any colleges anymore, except for one? It's like there's an arms race going on. In Florida, community colleges just became four-year colleges, not all. Terrible mistake. Our price on average in 2001 compared to theirs, the difference was $1,700. It's now over $5,000. So now we have price kind of on our side in a competitive market. And in 2001, we didn't have one uniform guaranteed transfer arrangement. We now have those with every public university and many privates, about 26 in all. So I just think, you know, the market is increasingly going to become much more interested in Thomas Nelson, because not only on price, but on the connections now that we have to a job or to a university. That's why our role is just going to expand. On the 20%, let me tell you the idea of the 20%. And we are going to bring this proposal to the board. And thank you for asking the question. Think of Virginia as having a bright side of the moon and a dark side. Economically. You go from, say, Fairfax County, where 78% of the population has an associate degree or higher, to Martinsville, where it's 17%. Or you go from Northern Virginia, and to some extent, you're very close by, where family incomes are 4 times what the family income is in Tazewell County, Big Stone Gap. You go from regions where populations are literally exploding. James City County, you serve James City County, one of the fastest growing counties in the Commonwealth since I've been here. You go from two counties like that Dabney serves, where they have lost 20% of their population in 10 years, and probably 20% of businesses. The bottom line is, we have colleges that serve vibrant, affluent, thriving markets that would not, although they wouldn't like it, that a higher tuition level would not necessarily deter their participation. Where it certainly would in Southwest Virginia Community College. Right side of the moon, family incomes, much more affluent, lots of opportunity, lots of things happening. Colleges are larger, typically, to the dark side of the moon, the stressed, the declining markets, the poor markets, and the shrinking markets, where tuition is not necessarily seen as an optional resource. So here's the idea. The idea, and I presented to the presidents and they agreed with some speech making, by the way. I love presidential speech. Just as long as I know the votes at the end of the speech. But I made the pitch. I said, look, how about we let those, I mean, when I arrived, we had one price, right? For the $78,000 family, I'm sorry, for the $125,000 family to the $17,000, we had kind of one price. And then we let Northern Virginia, about 3 years ago, do a little bit of a differential on top of the uniform price. They collected a little bit more. Well, here's the proposal I made to the presidents. There are others that possibly, there are others that live in that bright side of the moon that could also collect additional tuition. And for every dollar that they collect, in addition to the uniform increase, they would give back 20 cents that we would put in a restricted pool. And that could only be used on a stipulated basis to help those colleges that kind of live in the dark side. A stipulated basis like one-time kinds of investments, ADA projects, deferred maintenance that they can never get to. Or how about just some dollars to start a new program and get the thing off the ground because they can't buy the equipment. And I said, you don't have to play if you don't want to. I'm not going to make you do it. But if you do it, 20 cents. Now, we're not talking about a lot of money. But you know what? $75,000 to Eastern Shore Community College, that's a lot of money. That's a project. That's a new program startup. That could make a difference. Now, $75,000 to Northern Virginia, that's not a significant resource. It's not insignificant, but it's hardly noticeable. So that was the idea. You don't have to play, but if you play, you're going to give up 20 cents. And then, if you really want some more detail, Charles is having his office hours this afternoon. He has an open door policy because this is the other variable, and then I'll stop. And, you know, we're an FTE-driven funding formula is driven by FTE, but not all institutions get the same money per FTE. It all depends upon how big you are or how small you are. The larger you are, the more you can scale up your resources and you become more efficient. And you are held to higher efficiency factors than some of the smaller rules. So the smaller rules have a tendency to get a little bump up, but not a lot because they don't have a lot of FTE. On an FTE basis, the big colleges are held to a higher standard and their state support, I'm not talking about tuition, just talking about the general fund component, is at a little less. Well, part of this differential tuition proposal includes that once you collect back what you're contributing because of your efficiency factors, after you collect that back, that's when the 20 cents comes out. So Charles will explain that to you. For those that want a seminar, what time are you doing that, Charles? 7 to 10 tonight. Another question.
Chancellor DuBois, I'm just a little bit uncomfortable by the fact that you mentioned several times, diversity breeds conflict. I do not, I think there are many people in this room, faculty, staff, administrators, who would say that we do get along. Typically when the diversity word has been used here, it's been used to mean black-white. And maybe I'm naive, but I think that there is overall a good working relationship. We have never been accused of or had feelings of, black-white conflicts here at the college. I think that any issues that have come up have been not a black-white issue, not a diverse, issues other than that, and putting this other face on them, to me, is bothersome.
Okay, thank you for the comment. I'm still going to assert that conflict is more prevalent, the potential of conflict is more prevalent in a diverse environment. Now, it's kind of a law of physics. I'm not just saying it's a black and white issue. What's interesting is I was in the Finnish, let me illustrate it this way. I was in the Finnish embassy, talking to the cultural attaché at DC. And I asked them, can the Finnish people articulate the top 5 priorities of the country? He said, oh yeah, they'll get 4 or 5 of them right. They're all the same. In Finland, they want diversity because they don't have it. They just don't have it. Now, if I were to come here, in this college, this region, in this country, if I were to ask them, what's the top 5 priorities for this region? Or the top 5 priorities for this college? Do you think we might get some disagreement on that? I think we would. So when I say conflict, I'm not talking necessarily about racial relations. I'm really talking about the conflict of ideas, the conflict of views, the conflict of experience of where we have come from. It's diverse. And often there's a lack of understanding. And those voids, sometimes folks have a hard time trying to express themselves in that. So the more diverse an environment is, I think the more potential there is for misunderstanding, lack of awareness, and probably a need from time to time to take stock and just have a conversation. I think it's really about views, about what's important. I didn't mention race. It's really views. Want to follow up?
I agree with that. I think you can hear me, right?
Yeah. Good.
I agree with the diversity of views, diversity of ideas. But recently, when diversity's been talked about, we had diversity workshops that we went to last year, and there were things like, how